You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion. We're going to discuss the Jerry Sandusky case. If you're not familiar with it, please read more information about it to get a better idea. Because, of course, if you hadn't known about the story of the sex scandal in Penn State, we live in Pennsylvania. This has been truly a very difficult, but it's absolutely necessary for us to understand better about this case, because for obvious reasons, there's such stories coming out nowadays with layers and layers of cases like this. This is the Jerry Sandusky case, though, specifically. And this was just something I found on the internet. So a lot more details. I'm going to put some links below for anybody that wants to dig a little bit more deeper to what we're talking about. But this particularly affected everyone I know around me, because we're in the community or in the region of State College. And in fact, people I'm very close to are from that area. So, we're putting together Project Safe Kids, Erica's house, because to me, everybody needs a safe spot to go to, a safe place. And being as Erica was a child abuse expert, and more specifically dealt with home-based therapy, we'll just put that to apply that through people on an internet group site at some point. But this goes to a bigger topic that has been out in the public recently. It's called Investigate Pizzagate, Pedogate, which is what I think most people are tying just the cases, like in this case right now, the Jerry Sandusky case, where it involves boys. We just recently heard about Milo, who's a popular journalist, and they call him agitator, but there's a lot more to this topic, of course. So we're going to unravel some things. So we're going to put some more information here together. For anybody that wants to view some of this and stop the tape, please do that. But we're going to talk about the Jerry Sandusky case because it was already tried in the courts. And after listening to the first victim, victim number one, it's really hard to come away with anyone who had an agenda to frame somebody for something like this. Because after you hear the story about victim one, who does not want to be described as a victim, he wants to live his life, And if you've ever been a victim of a violent crime or abuse, or ever had somebody attack you or aggressively hurt you, you're trying to do everything you can to get your story out. And for whatever reasons, this aggression that comes out, there's obviously Jerry Sandusky needed help a long time ago. And after listening to his wife's, I don't know if it's testimony or her side of the story, it's obvious that Jerry Sandusky could never have gotten the help because of the level of denial just in his wife and her interview. I don't know where she's at with this. Maybe to her, she has come up with her own rational beliefs, and it sounds very believable. She sounds believable. But to the story that all these victims kind of conjured up, all the stories, and that all these actions and behaviors these kids are acting out, that means something, especially the kids that have been through a lot. It's a lot easier for people to blame kids that have been in a bad environment, bad home, but most kids, they don't wear that title. Just because they come from a poor home, they're just as much people as anyone else. And too many times what you end up happening is people put labels on children, and they abuse children this way. They call them manipulators, that they rob, they steal. But that to me says that there's a deeper problem going on. There's a symptom of a bigger problem going on. And it's not being addressed, or it needs to be addressed. But people who have been abused don't act out unless something's going on. And because victim number one was so young, he didn't know how to articulate. He was just acting out and melting down. And that's how the story came out. Before you know it, as you get into the video, you'll find out detail by detail, or like the timeline when Jerry Sandusky actually got caught. He had been literally to the point of stalking victim number one. Victim number one was in high school at the same time. So there was still a lot of people in the faculty that were going along. I don't know if they knowingly went along with it, but Jerry Sandusky he had the kind of influence in the community in Lock Haven, Pennsylvania, that he could go to Central Mountain High School and pick these kids out a class and then do as he pleased with them. It got to the point that these kids actually had to, they would actually hide in the bathroom. I don't know if anybody's ever known what that feels like when you're being abused. The safest spot is your school. And if you can't be safe there, then what else can you do? And that's why I'm going to talk about a deeper topic, and we're going to go into what is now called Pizzagate, Pedogate. This is a bigger version of the Jerry Sandusky case, because now what has been uncovered is people like Jerry Sandusky, who've earned the trust of the people, public trust, have been able to get away with this right under the radar. And listening to the audio, I was kind of wondering, I was a little reluctant. I didn't know if Chris Como was going to do the story justice, but he did in fact interview him, and it seemed as if Chris Como, which is now on CNN, actually did a lot here in helping the victim get his story out. But still, I still have concerns, because for obvious reasons, there's a lot of political people involved, and we want to get the story straight. We're getting to the point where if we don't have a way to reach out to other members of the community here locally in our community and statewide and nationwide, it has become the biggest issue. Human trafficking is one of the biggest problems, biggest concerns that most of us, we want to be able to live in our communities, and we want to go about things safely. We want to be able to talk to our family. We want to be able to have a discussion about this and how does this affect you. Now, usually when people are acting out, to me, there's the signs and signals. There's something here going on, okay? But to this degree, to the degree that these kids that came out one by one, and the risk that the victim one was taking, whether the community would accept what happened to him or not, was not the concern. It was just because this was happening to him, and it can happen to anybody. It could happen to anybody's kids, especially because in Jerry Sandusky's case, he was the kind of person in the state of Pennsylvania, well known, have been literally image after image of Jerry Sandusky, literally by this Joe Paterno's side. So this was such a provocative story. It was complex for a lot of reasons, because I think a lot of people were thinking, like, how could this really happen right in front of us? But all these years, if you've watched Penn State games and Pitt games, it was just part of the tradition. And one of the things is we want to be able to still have the tradition of football. Football is still very important. But obviously, now that cases like this are coming out, we got to be able to have an outreach so that kids don't end up abused. Now, I'm going to tell you, this goes to a bigger story that's going on in Pennsylvania, is that since that case is broke, there have been several other agencies dealing with children programs who have been caught either sexually abusing children, and most recently, now more stories are coming out as this has been breaking. Okay, so it hasn't stopped. Just recently in Zelienople, there was a case where one of the staff members was alerted to 5 boys having some kind of sexual contact with each other in one of the cottages, which actually in August of 2015 closed down the building. So this project is important. What we're trying to accomplish here, because I grew up in a foster home, so we weren't initially exposed to it. Well, no, I'm going to say that we were exposed to some things in the beginning, and then we had to be placed to another foster home. So this is obviously not just happening, and this is happening. I don't know how else to say it. For the first time in my life, I can actually talk about some of the experiences I've had, and I think that's why people are starting to realize, like, all these years I've been thinking, like, this is my fault. Like, why am I going through this? Why am I afraid that person is touching me in the wrong way? That uncomfortable feeling that you get, okay? Because typically people are not very physically, they're not used to being touched that way. So that's why I think now today people are talking about it. They're asking questions. They want to know how they can take steps and communicating. And the best way to do that is be a part of this on an everyday basis. As long as sexual abuse is happening every day, it's always going to be an issue. And that's why we want to make this awareness project that much more important. Thank you for taking the time to listen here at the Court of Public Opinion. I hope we can talk more about this in the next post too.